Okay. Can. Yeah. So welcome to the UI UX the design workshop part 2. Yeah. Along the way, if you have any questions or anything, please feel free to unmute and ask, or just ask in the chat. I'll be responding. I'll be looking out for the chat as well. Okay. So today's session has been hopefully improved from last week after hearing everyone's feedback. So generally the feedback was like I was talking a bit too fast, and some people felt that the theory was a bit too long, and that they wanted to see more examples and so on. And yeah, some of you guys also gave me inputs about what you guys want to see for this session. So I'm hopefully able to target everything today. Apologies if I cannot meet all the expectations. But yeah, I'm hopefully be able to cover what everyone wants to find out and improve as well. Yeah, so this is about me. I think you guys know already, since most of you guys will have been there for last week's session. But yeah, I'm passionate about UI UX. And yeah, together with me, I have Tian Hao as well, who will be helping me to facilitate the workshop. Yeah. Okay, so let us recap about what we covered last week. Okay, so I know some guys may have signed up last week but didn't show up, or like because you went for another session or something, and then you guys are taking turns to kind of attend and so on. So I'm just gonna share a bit. Right. So to differentiate between UX design and UI design, right? So UX is always about the kind of end-to-end interaction. So it starts from when you first acquire the customer or acquire the user, right? When they first start thinking, I may want to use this product. That's when the experience starts, and ends when they kind of become a loyal customer, right? Ideally, right? But user interface is more about what the user actually interacts with when they're using your product or service, right? So this is not really just in terms of the tech aspect, right? Even like I mentioned, even like furniture as an interface, right, which is what you use, what you come in contact with when you use it, and so on. So all these have design elements behind it, right? So why do you want to care about UI design? Right? Why is it so important? Okay, I think one of the most important reasons is that besides what I mentioned last week about like how generally UI UX what makes or break application these days, or like a product these days. Another important factor is that generally users, right, their attention span is not very long, right? Because things are, and especially nowadays when things are moving very fast, right? If the first few seconds or first 50 milliseconds you don't impress them, generally that's it already, right? They can't really change the first impression easily afterwards, and their experience from there on will be affected by that. So you need to be impressed, right? Unfortunately, this is part of the process, right? So this is once again the key factors of UI design. It looks familiar because actually it's no different from the UX design key factors, right? Ultimately, you need to meet the needs, right? They are using your interface for a reason, and they want it, if possible, is easy to use, as if they didn't need to learn anything at all. It's like they've been using it forever, right? And then you want them to be able to have freedom to do what they want, and then of course you want it to be surprising and delightful to use. Yeah. So the harsh truth is this, right? Okay, so this is the thing I must put out there first, right from the start. Okay, UI design is not easy. Okay, it's unless you are born with some eye for design, right, or you have some sort of experience with design. Some guys may have taken like arts related stuff in the past. Then in the case UI design may be easier for you. Or some guys may have done like Figma, photography, and so on. Then maybe UI design will also be slightly easier for you because you already have some sort of sense of design. But the fact is, a lot of people struggle to design beautiful UIs, right? So that's the thing. It's not easy, and it's very hard to teach also. So I'm trying my best to teach what I can, but I don't think it's a skill that can really be taught per se. It's really something you need to practice and experience. And it's kind of trial and error. You need to try something. You can try some sort of new design that you're thinking of. Doesn't look nice, you get feedback from others. Doesn't look nice, you improve. And you figure out what works, right? And the fact is, right, personally, I believe, right, is that the best way to learn how to do UI design is to observe how others are doing. Okay, because I mean, after all, UI UX is also about the time period, right? It's about understanding what people expect and what they enjoy doing in today's day and age, right? What may be the norm back then may not be the norm now already. So you need to be able to know what the trends, what's popular these days. So you cannot, and I don't think you guys can. I think you cannot really expect. Even I can't expect myself to be pioneering new like trends of UI or UX. Definitely not impossible, but you require some sort of level of luck and ability, right? And generally is quite tough. And of course, you all know companies that have done this before, like for example, like Apple and the iPhone, right, that has reinvented the whole mobile phone experience, right? Basically, there are people that are coming up with new trends these days. There's this trend called neumorphism. If you're interested, go and take a look. But this is also like a kind of UI trend that's happening. Yeah, but it's tough for, you can't expect yourself to be like pioneering these such things. So the fact is, the best way is to learn is to actually learn, look at what others are doing and try to actually imitate them if possible. Okay. Okay. So I'm not saying that that you should go out and copy people's designs. Okay. So don't go and like copy exactly word for word, like the kind of, but it's okay to go and take a look at what people are doing and then like get inspired and potentially imitate in your own ways. So you can take different aspects from different designs and put them together. So it's okay for people that are starting out, and it's all right if you are like you're not building something that you're going to profit from. Okay, if it's like a side, like own personal project or like a school project that is just for like you're not going to earn money from it, right? Then I think it's okay to imitate and potentially kind of learn different aspects of UI design from everyone, from all the designs you see online. Otherwise, I think it's a bit dangerous. Like you're trying to design something that you're going to profit from, and then you can kind of copy someone else's design. Right? It's a bit dangerous. Yeah. So with all this being said, right, our subsequent discussion will actually be very, very example driven. Okay. So from here onwards, a lot of things I'm going to talk about are going to be very driven by examples. And this is also what some of you guys feedback to me, is that you guys want to see more examples than just text. Because I think last week's session was a bit text heavy, and some guys were like quite bored. I think some guys say like, oh, very dry at the start. So I'm trying to make it more example driven. Hopefully, by looking at some examples that I'm going to go through, you guys get inspired and you guys get some sort of idea for your own Orbital projects. Okay, that's the ideal outcome. Okay, and generally I'll try to go through both. I think primarily web dev related, but I also have shared mobile designs as well. But the thing is, generally it's transferable, right? It's quite transferable. Okay. So let us first take a look at what we'll be discussing from here. So actually, I'll be discussing elements of art, elements of UI, and then talk about certain design principles. So this categorization is not perfect. Okay. Some people may not call it art elements. But I personally feel like this is a good way to categorize them, because the things under art elements are generally quite applicable for all sorts of arts, like all areas of art, be like painting, sculpturing, and so on. Right, this I think is all relevant. Right, things like lines and shapes. Right, UI elements are more specific to UI design, so like you don't talk about like buttons. We talk about like painting, right? So this is the thing. And principles are generally also quite applicable to everything. And yeah, so art elements are naturally kind of building blocks of designs or for like designing stuff. Naturally, UI design gets affected by it as well. And I'll try to contextualize all these things in the context of modern UI designs. Okay, for example, like lines, right? That's a very, very broad concept, right? Line in a painting and a line in a sculpture is very different. But I'll try to contextualize it in what exactly can we do with lines in let's say UI design. Okay, and lastly is that I may skip some of these elements if I feel like they're not very important. Like at least at the beginner level, it's not very important to delve into it. But like let's say when you get more experience, you may start thinking in terms of this kind of elements or principles. Okay, and hopefully we can finish this part quickly. Maybe around I'll try to finish this within an hour, and then we can move on to the hands-on part. Okay, so today's hands-on part is going to be a bit more less structured than last week's. Hopefully, and also you guys can do what you guys. I'll share a bit more later. Okay, so let's start with the art elements. So this kind of like foundations of everything. Right, so I'm going to be moving fast because there's a lot of slides. Okay, so lines, right, can be, I mean, they can have many different thickness, right? They can be different kind of like, it can be straight, it can be like curly, it can be very wavy, right? And of course, you can talk about zigzag. So all these are kind of lines that you can use in your own design. But you might be wondering like, how can you use it, right? So some of the examples I'm going to share after this are going to be both in terms of like more artistic designs, like very artsy, and also both in terms of very like somewhat more technical. Like for example, if you want to build an interface with like a lot of tables and stuff, you can talk about like this as well, or like a lot of different panels. So some of the numbers I'm going to go through is a bit of it's going to be a mix. Hopefully both can inspire you, but maybe you are the kind that get inspired more by the beautiful designs that are more artsy, then that'll be great. So I'm going to try to show both. Right. So for example, let's take a look at this design, right? So this interface, I mean, you can see the lines. It kind of actually gives your eyes a kind of like a direction to follow, right? So you can kind of see that when you look at this, you may look at text also, and then you may follow this to an image here, and then after it's follow downwards, and that's where you scroll down, right, naturally. Okay. Of course, I'm here trying to analyze the lines by themselves, but it's a bit hard because generally they come together to form larger structures as well. So here's another one that's a bit more like practical, right? So this design has used the lines to kind of segment the page. So this is one of their views also. One of the views. There are many different pages also, and they also use this kind of style to do this kind of like segmentation, right? And this design is a bit interesting, right? This line is actually just kind of like a mask, right, over this image. So this is also a line, right? And you can see a line in the background as well. So this is all like a certain style to it. And of course, in a more practical designs that you can see the lines are used here, kind of like let's say there's this post here, there's this reply here. You can segment the original post from the comments, right? Lines are used here. Lines are also used here to kind of show progress, right, and so on. And of course, you look at this the basement thing, right? You can see there's actually a line that kind of goes around it. So it's once again, it defines certain boundaries. So these are things you can think about, right? When you're designing, you may not think about it in terms of lines. You might not think like, oh, what then your line? Right? I can just put like the basement and then like the line is not here. But it does it does help to segment things. And yeah, we can talk about this a bit later. We can talk about design principles. Right. Once again, this is lines as well, and they're a bit more wavy. So lines also a good way to fill up empty space. Right, you see this one, if you don't have the lines, actually, I mean, it still probably looks good, but it looks a bit better with the lines, definitely. So you can, I have the links here. In case you guys didn't notice, all the links are below. When I send slides over, you guys can go and visit the page yourself and take a look if this is something that catches your eye and you kind of want to like replicate it. Okay. So that's for lines. So now we talk about shapes. So there's geometric shapes, organic shapes, abstract shapes, and other shapes and symbols. So geometric shapes are generally those that are a bit more like shapes that you learn in geometry, like squares, rectangles, triangles, circles, and so on. Organic shapes are shapes that kind of imitate life, like star shapes, right? Wavy shapes, and so on. Right. Abstract shapes are those that are a bit more well, the word is abstract, right? And there's also other shapes and symbols. Nowadays, some people may consider emoji as a shape also. Right, let's say you put a heart emoji, right, or like I mean, there's a lot of emojis out there. You can think of like fire emoji and so on. They're also kind of like shapes, right, and they kind of symbolize things as well. So there's some overlap with icons, which I'll talk about as well later. But yeah, you can think about like emojis kind of like new trend also. These days, people like use emojis. Okay, this is it's a new thing now. So for example, here you can see that this is a very structured kind of rectangular shape website. I think some guys may actually build something similar. If you guys have something like a gallery, right? Squares and rectangles. And notice that there's empty space here, but it doesn't look bad, right? As in, later we'll talk about negative space. But yes, sometimes space is good. Okay, giving empty space is a good thing. Yeah, so this is an example of squares and rectangles, right? Generally, they're used to organize elements and information within a page. And the thing about squares and rectangles is that it kind of evokes a sense of balance, like reliability and security, right? Generally, it's a bit more stable. When you look at squares, it feels stable, right? And then usually used for this kind of like there can be navigation menus. It's normally rectangular. You don't really see like triangle shape navigation menu, right? And buttons as well. Yeah, same here. You can see it looks very, very stable, right? That's the thing. Excuse me. Yeah, then here you can see it's a very, very wide rectangle that covers the whole width of your this web page, right? So once again, take a look. And yeah, I think the one that everyone's most familiar with is probably Instagram. I think everyone has used it before. Yeah, Instagram is definitely all about squares, right? And nowadays rectangles as well. Yeah, so this is it's basically it's easy to tessellate. Like squares are easy to tessellate. It's very easy to like stack together, and it looks pretty good. Generally, it's a good way to kind of showcase the gallery. Yeah. So how about now? There's also like nowadays trending is also diamonds and rhombuses. Not very common, but it's a kind of an in thing. Some people are like think of it's quite interesting design. I can think of it this way. Basically, it looks more contemporary. aka like more modern. Contemporary generally means modern, right? But not necessarily in a good sense. Okay, but generally it looks more modern. And yeah, you can kind of like stack them. Sometimes you can stack them together, look good, or like you can just use them by themselves. But generally it looks a bit more vibrant, the website. In this case. And then I mean here you can see it's also a kind of the diamond here, but it's formed with the objects like here. And this is more of an image as a background than like something you code out, right? But images is also part of UI design, which I'll talk about later as well. Yeah. So if I just send this kind of designs, take a look you can go take a look at the link that I have below. Okay, so there's also triangles and zigzags, right? So this is an example of a zigzag. So you can go to this website. It's quite interesting. This thing's animated. So like it's kind of like a zigzag that kind of floats outwards. It's like a DNA strand almost, right? So like and changes color as a scroll. So it's quite interesting. Generally triangles and kind of zigzags, right? They are good shapes to kind of signify some sort of motion or direction, right? If like let's say there's a lot of triangles and it points towards like upwards, right? Generally can kind of communicate some sort of I mean, you can think of it as like it's a bit more positive, but if everything pointing downwards, it can be a bit like feels a bit negative sometimes. A bit abstract. This kind of thing is a bit abstract. Also, once again, depends on the entire website design or the entire application design. But you can think of it as there's some sort of a motion when you look at triangles. Yeah, so this is another website that uses triangles as well. Quite cute. It's a mask. So you can move this triangle around, and then like the background will like that's behind the triangle will be grayscale, gray color, black and white. Yep. Okay, so but triangles I think generally less common. You probably wouldn't use it much, maybe except for arrows. But more common is definitely circles and ovals. Like circles is generally is used for a lot of things. Icons buttons thumbnails, your profile picture, thumbnails are all circles. Generally circle is quite interesting shape, right? Because it's very smooth and like kind of it's a bit more harmonious in a sense, right? And generally it looks a bit more fresh than squares. Then squares seems sometimes can feel a bit like a bit static. So circles generally feel slightly better, right? Yeah, this is our website that's complete. This whole thing is like a it's like a disc, right? So basically, it kind of spins as you go. That you can go and take a look at this website. Quite interesting. But the whole thing is about circles, right? So it can be incorporated a lot of ways in your different applications, your phone, mobile applications, your web applications. Right, and then there's curves, right? Curves. Generally, this is a bit more of an organic shape already, because sometimes they don't really they may not necessarily be a circle, right? It can be like a very wavy curve. So here's a website that looks pretty nice, right? The background is a very nice curve here, and then you can see below the icons also have some sort of very very non-standard kind of like curve but generally it feels very smooth and flowy, and it's nowadays very also quite popular because it's like very it pops up and kind of it's quite engaging as well. Looks quite modern and stylish. So here's a website that's pretty interesting called Relativity of Time. The background is like actually waves that kind of like animates up and down, so it's quite nice. And yeah, and this is another one that has like you can see the wavy shape here to kind of like cut off the border here. Yeah. So all these are websites you can take a look. Okay, so now it's about negative space. Okay, I hope everyone gets the joke here. So negative space is really about another term for it is called white space. Right. So basically the job of the kind of white space is to potentially is to not stand out themselves, right? Is to kind of let whatever you want the page to stand out. Right. They kind of take a back seat. But at the same time, it also can be used for stuff like balancing the page and so on. And generally, it's very important to have good white space. Okay. People tend to overlook and neglect white space. They like to put everything squeezed together and they think squeezing together looks good because you are squeezing more stuff, right? It's like more real estate that you're using. But that's not necessarily the case. Generally, you want to have space because it's more comfortable for people to look at. So let's talk about what space can do. So firstly, it can kind of help to focus attention, like I said, and then it can actually give you a visual hierarchy. So I'll share a bit more about hierarchy as a principle later, but generally it means that you have a certain structure that you want people to look at in a certain direction. Like from the top, the header to the body to maybe the footer. There's some sort of visual hierarchy, right? And using space can help you to kind of segment this part. If they're all lumped together, you wouldn't really see a difference between like the header, body, and so on. It's very hard to be able to read and so on, right? Then also definitely having negative space in your paragraph makes it easy to read text, and definitely makes it more lightweight, easy and comfortable, right? So I'll just give an example here. So here's an example of one that's very cramped, right? This design is very cramped. There's not much space here. let's compare to something that's like this. Right? There's a lot of space between the text, there's a lot of space within the paragraph itself, and there's a lot of space around it as well. Okay. So this is an example of like a design that kind of you need the space to make it look good. Okay. And also, yeah, this one space also helps you to group things together. So let's say look at the left side, right? You see that this is a bit too evenly spaced, right? All the negative space is it's just spread out evenly. You can't really tell where one form element ends before the other starts, right? But in this case, you can see that when there's a bit more white space between the label and the placeholder and the text input on top, right? It's very clear that this is the one form element, this one form element, this one form element. So this is also in the importance of negative space. And personally, I feel there's no better website to learn about negative space than from Apple's website. Okay, Apple is like the master of using space. You can go and take a look. They barely take up all the space. I don't think they ever really take up all the space there is. Right, they have a lot of blank, empty space, be it like white color or like black color or so on, and it's beautiful, right? You never ever feel like it's like too cramped. You feel very comfortable reading, right? Whatever you look at, right, there's nothing distracting you. It's just this. It's a leap year, right? Then you see this iPhone 12 Pro, iPhone 12 Pro Max, and you feel like you want to click the buy button already, right? And then you see this beautiful design below. You don't really get distracted by anything else. They're not trying to squeeze a lot of stuff here. It's very, very digestible, the information, right? Buy the phone. That's the message. And it's telling you that it's not expensive. Okay, although it is. Yeah, so that's that for what is for like negative space. Okay. So let's talk about volume. I think this one maybe not as relevant, so I just show like two quick examples. Volume is basically about three-dimensionality, right? Whether something pops up, it looks like it's 3D and so on. This can be in the form of like buttons that kind of pop up, like when you click it, it kind of sinks down and so on, or in the form of like images like this, designs they kind of showcase some sort of depth. So this whole, thanks to this below here, this insect here, right? This whole page seems to have a bit more depth than just a normal web page. I don't know if you guys can feel it. You look at the overall thing, generally it feels like some sort of 3D sense already, a bit more 3D-ish. Okay, right. Another one is this like this mobile design, right? This whole table and plate here and the tray here is a real photo but it does give this whole login page a bit of a depth feeling. Feels like this text is hovering in front of this whole table, right? And that this is like a backdrop behind the content, right? So this is the power of text of volume. But for newcomers, like people that are new to UI design, volume journey is not something they will explore straight away. So I don't want to go too much into it. But if you guys are experienced already, like some guys maybe even more experienced than me potentially, right? This might be something that you will be dabbling with quite often. Okay, then let's talk about value. So in case you don't know what I'm talking, which element or property or principle I'm talking about, you can look at the bottom left. But value is basically about you can think of it as lightness, right? It's basically how light or dark something is, right? So generally, white is the highest value of highest value, right? And black is the lowest value. And generally is in art, right? It's actually more important than the color that you select. Okay, generally this lightness and darkness is more important than whatever color you choose. So so colors later I'll talk a bit more about colors. Okay, so you can see this page this is a generally the bottom here is very, very the value is very high, but it's like white color, very light. Here is a slightly darker, and this whole part here is just dark. But because of this, you can see the text in front very clearly, right? Because of the background here is very dark. Then this one in front that's very light is more visible. This man's life, but yeah, it's about this man's life. I don't know who's the man. And same website, right? If you scroll down, then this website plays a lot with the value. You can see the background then becomes dark, and then the text becomes white. And same time, you can kind of focus on the video and so on, right? And then once you scroll down a bit more, goes back down to a bit of a light background with gray kind of these are his audiences the people that he's worked with, the companies he worked with, right? So yeah, it's generally that's why I think it's a good example of value, right? And yeah, but maybe today when we discuss value, we also discuss about color yeah. So before I jump to color, any questions so far? I'm going a bit faster than last week. because I'm also hoping to run through more examples, and it's very example driven. So as I don't think there's anything interesting too interesting about it, just talking about the example itself. I'll share a bit about what the example kind of like does interestingly, and you guys can think about how you guys want to incorporate that into your own designs. And I understand that some guys may be still not clear about what you can take away from this to your own design, like own UIs. And that's why later on I'll share a bit more practical stuff, and you'll have a hands-on that hopefully can help your team as well. And hands-on will have hopefully something they can take away for your own project. Okay, so let's talk about colors. So let's start off with a bit of a color theory. I know some guys may be familiar with this. You guys have done art in your primary school, in secondary school, and so on. You have learned this like tons of times. But let's talk about it a bit more. So let's first talk about the primary colors. Right. So primary colors generally is magenta, cyan, and yellow. I know some people may say that it's like red, blue, and so on, right? But generally this is more accurate. That's why instead of magenta is red and then cyan is blue. But generally now they said, apparently research shown that cyan and magenta may be more accurate. Right. But the important color is it's very quite important. So let's say someone gives you like a dream car, right, for free. It's a brand new, it's like your car that you always wanted to get for your whole life. Right. But it's actually painted in the color they hate the most. But even though it's a brand new car and it's awesome, right? You feel slightly less excited about it because it's not the right color, it's not your color. Right. So actually colors have a lot of importance, right? They have a lot of significance, and they do have some sort of emotional impact and tone. Right. And that's why we need to use it in our own designs. Yeah. So let's talk about hex values and RGB. I think most of you guys may know about hexadecimal values already, especially those that took 2100 probably. You have learned basically 000 is the same as 000. Okay, yeah. So that's black color. And white color is 255, 255, 255, which is basically FF in base 16. Right. So you guys ever seen this kind of hex code and feel confused what they mean? This is what they mean. Red, green, blue is these colors. Okay. And there's another color here, right? So 59, 89, 145, same as this one. So some guys can guess what color this is. But yeah. Yeah, so that's for the hex codes. So those of you guys who work close, I think generally most programming languages use hex codes for color, right? Or maybe this for if you use CSS, you might use this also. Or RGBA if you have transparency. So the A in RGBA is alpha, which means how transparent the color is. Right? If alpha is 1, then it's fully transparent. If I'm not wrong, right? Yeah, I think it should be that. Okay. Then there's warmth also, right? So warm colors basically contain more reds and yellows. And then generally it means it can kind of evoke sense of warm passion, aggressiveness also sometimes, and boldness, right? For example, a stop sign will always be red color, right? Because it's very, very aggressive. You'll notice it. And that's why it's also when you use red, you generally use it error messages, cancel buttons, or delete buttons, right? Then these kind of things are telling people you better be careful when you come interact with me, right? It's very aggressive. While cool colors, right, generally contain more blue, right? Generally it's it does it's a bit more it conveys a bit more of something can convey more professionalism, can think of this way. Some people can think of blue as professional, but also more about can be sadness, right, and so on. And it can also be a relaxation for some people, right? So generally they're more blues. Okay, then tints and shades are basically when you tint, right, it basically means you add white to a color, right? And then you get a shade from. So when you add white, you get a tint, and then when you add black, you get a shade. So let's say you start from this middle color here, then you add white, you can get these two colors and add 2 levels. And more black becomes you get these shades. So actually by doing this, you can get a monochrome palette, right? And I'll talk more about palettes. But yeah, so this is what I call a monochrome palette. And there's also a concept of saturation, hue, and lightness, right? So saturation basically talks about how intense the color is, right? I think for those of you guys who have ever made Insta posts and then you guys edited your own photos and so on, you'll probably be familiar with these terms or seen it before at least, right? Saturation is basically about intensity of color, right? How rich or how dull it can be, right? And generally lower intensity means it's feel more faded and lighter. And let's say you talk about light blue or dark green, generally that means it's a saturation that's changing, right? From light to dark to light blue is light, right? Then dark green is dark, right? Then hue generally means what the color can be described to. generally it's according to like the color wheel or the color of the rainbow. So let's say you say this color is blue-green, right? You're just saying that it's kind of like you're using two hues to describe it, right? So that's what I call a hue. And lightness is basically about it's basically what you talk about value. It's basically the perceived brightness, right, of a color as compared to like pure white. So you can see this interesting design. I can't remember what's this model called. But yeah, it basically illustrates these three concepts. So those of you guys who have worked with colors often, like you guys may use Photoshop or like you guys do like photo editing and so on, you will have seen these terms a lot. Right? So this is what they mean. And then lastly, color wheel, right? So I'm just introducing concepts required for us to move on to the color palettes, right? So generally, color wheel has 12 standard colors, right, to design color schemes, right? And basically, kind of each slice, right, represents some sort of a family of colors that can be achieved with different saturations, hues, tints, shades, and like mixing different colors and so on, the neighboring colors. And yeah, so as you talk about the red or magenta, right, yellow and blue are cyan, right? Generally, they are the primary colors, right? Then violet, orange, and green are kind of the secondary colors. But everything else is what we call tertiary color. It's basically a mix of primary and secondary color, right? And just some FYI. So generally, when you want to find the contrasting color, right? You just need to look across the color wheel. So for example, red and green are contrasting colors, right? Or what we call complementary colors, right? Blue and orange, right? Yellow and purple. Generally, these are the ones that are more well known. But just need to look across the color wheel to find them. Okay. So what have we so what's the point of learning all those, right, that I've just talked about? So the point is to actually arrive at this. We want to design our own color schemes for your own websites. Okay. Or not just website, your own, I keep saying website, your own applications or your own products, right? You need a color scheme. And why color scheme, right? Generally, later on we'll talk about it a bit more, but generally you want your page to look uniform, right? When you have a lot of different colors, random colors, it can look very, very visually very distracting. You don't know what, like it's bombarding you. But when you have a certain color scheme and you follow very strictly to it, your whole website can feel very uniform, or there's a sort of sense of unity, which is important concept and one of the principles as well. So there are a few types of different color palettes, right? One of them is monochrome, which I mentioned before. So generally it's just the same hue, right? But different tints and shades and saturations of the same base color, right? It's very, very cohesive. Okay, so generally monochrome, if you use monochrome, right, your website cannot look too bad at it, because you look very, very uniform, right? Very cohesive, but it can become very monotonous, right? Can become a bit boring. So of course there's always a give and take, right? So it's the good thing is that is generally can't go wrong with using a monochrome design. And those of you guys who who love black and white and gray, right? This is the thing for you, monochrome, right? But sometimes it can get boring, right? Then the next one is complementary. So like I mentioned, complementary colors are basically opposite colors, right? Contrasting colors. So red and green are complementary, for example. So basically complementary schemes are kind of based on two colors from opposite sides of the color wheel, right? Because these two colors or these two hues, right, are generally very, very contrasting, right? Your website, your design, right, can be very, very impactful and noticeable, right? There are also other subtypes of complementary. Some of them called split complementary and so on, where they have like one primary color and then two analogous, two different colors for like complement and so on. Yeah, then I won't talk too much about it. You can Google if you want. But generally, this is what we call complementary. And what might be a good time to use the complementary color scheme? It's like, let's say your website, you want to have a button that's very, very obvious and you want them to click it. Maybe this is the button, the sign up button or something, or the purchase button, right? That's what I call a call to action. This kind of like where you call people to have some sort of action, call to action, right? You might use a contrasting color for this case, right? So let's say your background is this color, right? This kind of a bit more orangey, dark brown, deep brown. Then your button is like a bright blue, right? People cannot miss it. Okay. So what's analogous? Analogous is basically colors that kind of sit next to each other in a color wheel, right? So normally people use three colors next to each other, and generally because they are very, very similar in terms of tone, right? Because they're very near each other. They can actually be very cohesive as well, just like the monochrome, but less boring than the monochrome, because it's you have different colors, right? Okay. So excuse me, yeah. Then lastly is a triadic. So triadic is as the name suggests is tri. So what you do is you can draw a equilateral triangle on the color wheel, and the three colors that at the points of triangle are basically the colors they use. So that's triadic, right? Yeah. So any question about the color schemes? Later on I'll share more about websites that can do this kind of color palettes, color schemes on your own, or they can generate or recommend you one for you to just use. Okay. And there's psychology behind colors, right? Every color has their own meaning. So for example, like red generally means strength, can be excitement, right? Blue is like some sort of trust, competence, and so on. White generally is like what, innocence. Black can be very like in terms of formal or like very security, sophistication, right? Very classy. Purple can be like royalty and so on. So all these play a role. So like look at this kind of logos, right? They all kind of transmit a certain message with their color schemes. It's not like they anyhow design the logo also, right? And like for example, like Netflix, this does look very, very very bold, very aggressive, right? It's a red of black, right? That's very, very bold and very, very like striking, right? Like versus like Google, right? They have a lot of different colors, right? Which also kind of is very interesting. Basically tells such like it feels kind of very creative, that kind of feeling. There's like a bit of blend of everything. So it's these kind of things do have a message, right? Or I guess Facebook is supposed to be very in terms of like very you supposed to evoke confidence in Facebook from the users and so on. Yeah. So I mean there's a lot of different interpretations of like all the different colors, but there's a few general sensing you can get. I think it's a bit common sense. I won't talk too much about it, but you're not sure about certain colors, you can just ask me anytime or just email me. So how should you kind of use the color palette? So generally when you use a color palette, I recommend you to, and this is a rule, 60-30-10 rule, right? It's a 60% primary color. So 60% of your interface should be of the primary color, 30% should be of the secondary color, and 10% should be some sort of accent color. So accent colors generally use it for like stuff like the buttons, stuff like the small things like certain icons and so on, or certain small text or links, right? But generally, you want to work mainly with the primary color and secondary color. Okay, so this is a distribution that you want to aim for. So let's see an example. Let's take a look at the Apple's website. So in this case, what is the primary color? Anyone wants to give a try? Give a guess. Is it really black? Let's say look at this whole screen. It's actually white color, right? Because actually, so white is also a color. Don't just not because it's empty space, therefore it's not color. So white is actually also color as well. And white basically the primary color here almost, I wouldn't say 60%. It's potentially even 80% here, right? But it's white. Then then like what both one, right? Say also black is actually the secondary color, right? So you can see this kind of very sleek black on top. Icons the images here are all black as well. The icons, text is black as well, very sleek. And what might be some accent colors that they have on the page? Yeah, there'll be colors like blue. So you can see the button is blue, the learn more is blue. And also this is also a kind of like accent color, I guess. The red, the slightly orangey red here, as well as here. Yeah, so actually it's quite simple. Look at this page. There's only like a few, of course, there's some different shades of like white and black, which is like gray, right? Different shades of gray here. But generally it's quite there's a color scheme quite going on here that is quite obvious. So the blue is not going to be, they're not going to have multiple shades of blue. They're only going to have like one blue and use it repetitively. But the shades of white and gray and black can kind of vary a bit more, right? Because it's the primary color, right? Okay, so these are some tools that you can take a look at if you're interested to create on color palettes. So the first one is Adobe Color. Last time we called it Cooler. Now it's Color already. Ever since like, I think 2 years ago or something, like 1 or 2 years ago. It's a great website. You can see what people create. You can see the palettes people create, and you can just use it. You can copy the color codes and so on. Similarly, you can have Coolers, which also help you generate color palettes. It's quite popular. I think Coolers is quite popular these days. Color code is pretty good also. Color code helps you to. It's quite a nice website. It's very, very stylish, and yeah, it helps you to generate the color palettes quite easily as well. So all these are good websites that you can take a look at. Choose one that you feel like is the most intuitive to use and you like the most. Okay. And lastly, in terms of UI art element, lastly is texture. I won't go too much into this because texture is a bit of a high level concept, but this is an example of like texture. You can see that using this texture here, it does give a feeling of some sort of like I mentioned, I mean some sort of like voyeur feeling, right? Feel a bit more prestigious. There's a feeling of prestige here. And for this French website, I think I'm not sure what they're selling. But it does seem like some sort of very high-end luxury product. So it does make sense with this kind of texture. And texture can be different things like let's say you build a game. Of course, the UI must have some sort of texturing, right? So that also is part of the UI, right? You can't I mean use a terrible game if it's just like, okay, it's not a terrible game. I take back my words. But it can be very, very plain if like all the colors are uniform, right? And they're just patches of the same color over again. It can be very not as nice to play, right? Yeah, so that's for the art elements. So let's talk about UI elements. Quickly. This part will be, I guess, more more applicable. So typography. So let's start typography. So typography, using text correctly. Typography is basically text, right? Or rather, like text and all different fonts and so on. It's using it well is actually considered art of its own. There are many ways to do design with just text, right? Just text-based designs. So many. Go and Google text-based designs, right? There's so many ways to do it, right? And look at this slide, right? It's actually completely full of text. But hopefully this website doesn't look that bad. Okay. No website, this slide doesn't look that bad. So let's find out more about this. So here's a very popular trick. I don't know if this works for you guys. Let me know if it worked in the chat. But yeah, I fell for it as well. So this is the power of text. It's that really with text, you can actually control the whole flow of the user. Right? They can control the experience of the user. So don't underestimate text. Right? Text is very, very powerful. And using it well is a skill. Not many people can do it very well. Right. I'll show some examples later of like nice pages that's built with just text. Okay, but or just nice. Yeah, but before that, let us jump into different definitions first. So this will help. Okay, so this is helpful for a lot of different for anyone doing front end actually. Those of guys who have done CSS who have seen this kind of terminologies very commonly. I think you use Flutter, also very similar. You have very similar terminologies, right? I think in fact almost all sort of UI libraries have something similar. So let's take a look at the terms, right? So I think what's very common is font size. This definitely everyone knows about this, right? So this is how you can define a font size and font weight. I think these two are very common. Most guys will know about it. Font weight is basically the thickness, right? From like light to medium to regular to bold, right, and so on, or like extra heavy, and so on. Then there's a line space, right? Basically, how the spacing between lines is a very important thing also. Sometimes you don't want the text to be like right above each other. Like the next line should be some spacing below. There's line height as well. Yeah, I guess sometimes it's a bit unclear whether you should modify the leading or the line height. But generally, most people go for line height because I think this is the more intuitive option. Right? I think both works. Yeah, the word spacing is basically how spaced out the words are. And these two things are very easily confused. And I'm not very sure if this is very applicable for you guys, but I'll just talk about it so you guys don't get confused between these two. Some of you guys may have heard of kerning before, right? And some of you guys may have heard of letter spacing. And you guys may be wondering like, what's the difference? I mean, they sound the same. Kerning is also about like spacing of characters, right? So kerning actually means it actually applies for very specific pairs of characters. Okay, very, very specific pairs. So let's talk about the example. Let's talk about AV. I'm gonna send the word AV to the chat. Right, you see the characters A and V, right? They're very, very close to each other. Actually, they're overlapping, right? Actually, effectively, they're overlapping. I'm not sure you guys may have noticed this before. Right? Some guys may not actually observe this, but actually they're overlapping, right? But then other characters like AB, like let's say ABC, well, they're not overlapping, right? So this is what I call kerning. It's because kerning is a spacing between specific pairs of what they call glyphs. Glyphs. Like glyphs is basically includes characters, numbers and punctuation and so on. Right. Using very specific pairs of glyphs, right? There's special kind of spacing. Right. So for A and V, if you spread them out a bit more, it looks very weird. They feel like they are like dangling. Right. So this is why you need to like put them together to make it feel like they are very compact and they look good, right? While letter spacing is more general, if you increase the letter spacing, I think all the spacing between every single pair of glyph, right, will increase, right? So that is like, it's a global thing. While kerning is about like very specific pairs of glyphs. So like A and B, but like not A and B, maybe like A and B maybe like maybe 3 pixels, but A and B will be like -2 pixels and so on, right? Well, letter spacing is, let's say I increase by 10 pixels, then every single spacing will increase maybe like 10 pixels and so on. So this is the difference. And it very commonly, right, that people, designers like especially, may not be UI designers, maybe like graphic designers and so on, text, people doing design in general. They almost always abuse the letter spacing, but never ever touch the kerning. So kerning is a bit underused and letter spacing is a bit overused. So that's the interesting thing. Yeah. Okay, and then font sizes. Generally, for your app, right, try to stick to at most 5 font sizes. Don't have too many, right? If you have too many, it gets very visually confusing, right? Because the font sizes does signify also a bit of about how important something is, right? If the thing is big, it's super big at the top, naturally you feel like, oh, that's the most important thing I should look at, right? But if you have like, wow, then after you have something that's slightly smaller, then you like 10 of that, and it gets smaller and smaller, then people are like confused about what's the significance of, I mean, what's the difference between like this level and this level, right? Like the first level and the 6th level. There's no difference to me at some point. So you should try to have 5 different levels at most. And this is like kind of like the different levels of importance. So maybe like extra small, maybe something like caption, maybe for like a disclaimer at the bottom, right? Subject to terms and conditions, right? For example, some stuff like that. Well, this is like maybe your small or medium will be like a normal text, large maybe like a header, and this like a some sort of like maybe for your hero image, your hero. I'll talk about a bit more about hero lah, but basically like your thing at the top, right? Like some sort of like message that you want to blast. Okay, and then in terms of font families, these are 3 types of fonts that you probably use the most. The rest are not very relevant. But yeah, generally serif, sans serif, and monospace lah. Monospace, I think you guys see a lot in your code editors. You guys use like VS Code, Vim, or IntelliJ and so on. I mean, all the fonts there are monospace lah. Right? If it's not monospace, your code will not be the same length, like same number of characters, but the length will be different. That will be quite scary. So monospace is monospace means all the characters are the same. All the glyphs are of the same glyph lah. Okay. So serif is generally, you can see these kind of fonts that are not very pointy, they're very curvy. This is serif. Sans serif tend to be like the more traditional feeling. You look at this T, for example, you see at the bottom has this thing sticking out, top has this thing sticking out as well. Case also has this thing pointing out. This is what I call sans serif. Or did I mix it up? Nah, this should be correct. Yeah. I hope I didn't mix it up. Yep. So here's an example website. Right. This is this guy's portfolio. I saw it on the Dribble. Someone sharing their portfolio website. It looks pretty slick, right? I mean, what does it have here? It's all text. even the logo at the top is also a text. Although it's kind of like a design, it's kind of like a logo lah, but I mean everything here is text. It looks quite slick, right? And all he utilizes is stuff like colors, right? Font size. Right? You notice that there's only how many font sizes here? One font size here, 2 font size here, and 3 font size here. And that's all you need to kind of show some sort of hierarchy, right? When I first look at the website, I look at the center part here. That's the first thing that grabs my attention because it's the biggest. Then after I might look at this one to know that, oh, there's about work and contact. Then after, oh, there's a logo and his name is here, right? And so on. So it's good to have this. It's quite clean, right? Okay. Yeah, so that's the type of the typography. Then of course, sometimes you don't need text. What do you always write text? And sometimes you can use icons to represent some sort of ideas or actions, right? For example, like if you want to give a rating, right? You don't ask people like, oh, rate 1 star, rate 2 star. You don't write out 1 star, 2 star. You just write the stars, right? Just show stars, icons, right? Or let's say you want thumbs up, thumbs down, likes, like Instagram, the heart shape and so on, right? You don't need to say like or love, Okay, no offense to Facebook, but sometimes you don't need the text, you can just show the symbol and people get it, right? Yeah, but generally you want to try to use like icons that people recognize universally. Don't use icons that's like very, very localized, like only you understand or like you and your group of friends understand. Unless of course your product is for your group of friends to use, right? And so on. And if really some icons are a bit ambiguous in the context, you can put some text there to explain it, make sure that it's clear. Okay. Like for example, like a cross button next to a like an entry, right? You don't know if it deletes or is it like what's that cross supposed to do? But you should, it's best that you kind of show some sort of text or like some sort of tooltip when you hover over it. Right. So if you guys ever need icons, you can always go to this I think you guys may know about it, fontoption.com. Generally this is more suitable for web apps because they have the CSS library that you can just kind of import. I know that you kind of need to pay sometimes, but I believe you can get it you can find a way to get it for free. And I think you can create an account and get it for free or something. Yeah, and you can use maybe like 50% of the icons on the website and so on. I mean, they have a lot of icons. You can see like even like what, like a abacus. Okay, right. Wow, right. So they have a lot of icons. This is one place you can look at. I mean, you can just Google icons. There's a lot of other websites that have icons as well. You feel like it's worth paying, you can always pay lah. And yeah, this is an example of a website that looks use icons quite well, I feel. Like for example, the down arrow, that's me, I need to scroll down. I look at this site, I don't even know the language, I think it's Russian. Right, but I can roughly understand what I'm trying to say. This looks like card, looks like locate us. This definitely contact us. I'm not sure what this is. Maybe like collaboration, can reach out to them. And this is like God knows. But this like opening hours. I don't know. Yeah. So basically, icons can help to communicate messages and can even across different languages right? You can cross boundaries. It's quite crazy. So icons can be useful at times. Okay, now for buttons. I think there's a lot. I just thought a bit more briefly about buttons. Unfortunately, I think this part I wanted to add more slides, but I kind of ran out of time also. So I'll say some stuff. You guys can listen and see if you guys can take away some stuff. So generally, there's like I would say that call to action buttons are also kind of primary buttons. It's a subset. But generally, these are the buttons that you really want people to kind of like very important. Like tell them, hey, please do this. Right, this is important. So this can be a checkout button. Like you want people to make payment. Of course, you want people to give you money, right, to buy your stuff. Or like a sign up button. Right, this is like a legit call to action. Well, primary can be something like just like the main action that you expect users to do if they complete the correct user flow. So I think you guys may have heard about the use cases. If you guys read the 2103 website, you heard of use case scenario, is it? Is that what it's called? But basically, there's a main success scenario, right, that you want to follow, MSS, I think. Basically, it's like it's a path of success. You want the path that users should by right follow if they do everything correctly every step. Right. So generally that's the path that you want to highlight with your primary. But if let's say the user made a mistake and they want to go back and make changes, that's where the secondary button may come in, right? Because it tells people like, oh, you shouldn't be doing this, but you can go ahead and do it. It's freedom, right? Once again, there's nothing. One of our ideal outcomes is freedom, and they can do whatever they want. Yeah, and generally sometimes people may replace this back with like a text underline. So like this is the main button with like the whole button body and so on. Then besides just a text underline kind of button. I'll show you an example later. Yeah. Then of course buttons at different states, right? Button states. So normal would be like something like this. Maybe hover over the button, it kind of lights up, right? It kind of goes in a lighten mode to know that it's clickable, right? When I hover over something that doesn't light up, I don't know whether you can click it or not. It's not very intuitive. Of course, naturally, ideally is that your cursor becomes like some sort of pointer, right? May not be relevant for mobile devs. You guys doing mobile dev, not very relevant. But for web dev, it's very relevant. Focus, I don't know if you guys have seen before on your website, is that sometimes when you focus the button, right? And then there's like this bounding box around it, right? It's a good thing, by the way. Don't try to, I know some guys may try to disable it such that it doesn't ever have this button, this kind of thing. But I think it helps. I think it's a accessibility thing. So try not to disable it. You should just keep it. Generally for web development, you don't need to build this. I think for mobile also don't really build this, but this is just good to know there's a focus state. Okay, active state is the state that happens when you press it. So sometimes you, for those that are using mobile Material UI, you know that your buttons when you press it, there's a circle that expands out, right? Like a white color, like a light color circle that expands out. So this is what I'm trying to express here, but it doesn't look very accurate. But yeah, so that we tap it, then it kind of expands out, then button like it's clicked, right? Then there's disabled, which is like it should look unclickable. I think this is not perfect. This doesn't look this still doesn't look very unclickable. But this is an example. Show you the difference. Yeah. Wait, before I go to this next part. Yeah, so generally don't try not to keep your buttons too small, especially for the mobile devs out there, people doing mobile apps, right? If your button is too small, right, it's impossible to tap. Right? So generally try to make it relatively have some sort of size. I think Material UI has guidelines, these kind of things. I think Apple may have guidelines also. I'm not very sure. Yeah, but the guidelines in terms of how small you can make a button. If it's too small, there's no point. People won't click it because it's impossible to click. Because you can try to design for the people with the biggest hands out there. This may be like maybe basketball players. Right? They have huge hands. Their fingers are huge. Generally their fingers are much bigger than normal average persons, right? And they may not be able to interact with the buttons as well. So you can think about how to design for different people as well. So it's good to think be accessible. And content design, right? Okay, content design may not be very relevant for you guys. But generally it's about making sure that the user gets the content in the best possible format and in the correct and it should be phrased correctly, right? And it should be helpful. So this is partially a bit of writing also. So like content design can be a bit of writing skills. So like for example, your instruction message. Is it very clear? If people read it, do they understand what they need to do immediately? Right. That's a bit of a content design. And let's say if instead of writing a whole chunk of text, you may just put a video and then you can it's done. And it's also more easier to absorb. Then maybe you shouldn't be doing text, right? So this is a way of thinking of content. I won't give much examples. This is a bit of sometimes you have content designers on a team to work on this in a big company. While you guys are on your own, so you guys have to think about the content design as well. But then this part is not exactly very applicable for Orbital, I feel. Yeah, and definitely using media is an important skill. Okay, so image or video can be much more powerful than text, right? And media can trigger emotions that text simply cannot. Right? Look at like for example, let's say you go to an organization that does charity, right? They show a picture of them on the ground serving the people. Actually, that tells you a lot more than just saying, "Oh, we serve the people on the ground," right? That doesn't convey much. But you look at the picture of people getting helped and people being happy from getting helped, and people helping also being happy and so on. You will feel like, wow, okay, I want to volunteer, I want to help, I want to join, I want to donate, right? So it can evoke emotions and compel people to take actions, right? And different actions potentially, and can build trust and confidence, right? Telling people that you do this, it's not as effective as showing that image of you doing it. Then they're, oh, these people can do it. This company can do it. This group can do it, right? So this is about the media. Sometimes it also helps to convey messages that can be quite complex. Let's say I look at this screen, right? This is Lyft, a very popular app in the US. It's like the Grab. I don't really need to look at the bottom part. This is so long. But I look at this image, I sure know that this is about the health and mask already, right? I can kind of guess what this is about, and it kind of like sets my mind, like the mentality correctly. Like instead of like, oh, what's this? That I have to read to figure out what's this. I look at this, oh, it's about health. It's probably about like mask or COVID. Then I read, okay, yeah, indeed it's about COVID, about regulations. Yeah, easy. And this one, right? Check your right push notifications. You might be like, what kind of push notification is this? Why do I need it? Then you just show this image, right? People, oh, okay, that's useful. I would love to know where my driver is at any point in time. Allow. I'm much more willing to allow. If you just tell me this bottom part here. I mean, you can push me a lot of stuff, man. I may not be very trusting of you. I'm like, oh, maybe not but why you push me some other stuff? Keep pushing me notifications that I don't want to see, right? So this is helpful, right? It tells you what to expect. This is actually a video, and this website actually, and it's a website that has a video as a background, and I think this is very popular these days, which is setting some sort of background that plays while you kind of go through the website. It can be a video, it can be a GIF. I think these are all trending popular options these days. Yeah, and it's quite effective. I think you guys have time, you can go take a look at the website. It's quite impressive. The video is quite impactful, and it's like built into the website, right? So it's like that's the background, right? So yeah, I only captured the image, but it really helps, makes you feel like you want to go to the national parks. Honestly, it's very effective. So this is another case of media being very useful. Okay, any questions so far about the UI elements? I know there are a lot more that I didn't really cover. You can talk about like tables and so on. Generally, those also have some sort of like what's called best practices, I guess. But I don't want to go too deep into it, and I think I'm running out of time a bit as well. So I'm kind of want to accelerate a bit more. Shucks. Okay. Let's just get started then. So let's talk about Unity first. So what affects Unity? Unity is basically okay. What's Unity? Unity is basically the state of being like harmony between all the different elements of your website, of your app. Right? You don't want to feel like one part of the app is a bit different from the other part, and then feel like it's not built by the same person, right? Or maybe it's not built by the same person, but at least you feel like the same person built the whole thing, right? And basically can create a consistent experience lah. And then users don't feel like, oh wow, I have to relearn the thing when I go to a new page. Like, oh, why suddenly it looks different? I don't have figure out what is what now. But I just use the previous screen and it looks, and I finally learn how to use it, and so on. Right. So there's a few different factors that affect Unity. So I won't go through. I think I don't have time to go into too much detail. But there's color, right? Your whole thing has a certain color scheme and it's very standardized. It looks united. Repetition, right? You keep repeating the same thing over and again. Generally, it does increase the Unity, right? I mean, this can also be in terms of products, like Apple's products. Generally they tend to have like the camera at the top here, top at the front, camera at the back, and so on. Right. There's repetition between all their products. Right. You can feel like it's united as a brand. Alignment, right? Suddenly your text is like aligned left, and suddenly one center line, suddenly a line right, and so on. And it's like not coordinated, right? It feels very messy. It doesn't feel united. Direction, right? Like if I expect myself to be looking downwards, then suddenly you have one thing that goes like it's like to the right or something. Then it's very weird. Right, direction is very weird. Doesn't feel united. And consistency is about how consistent everything is lah. So that means typography, right? Is it the same font family being used? And is it like the design style? Is it very consistent and so on? Yeah. So let's quickly look at some examples. So this one is definitely very united. And why is that so? It's probably because of the color theme. I think that's the most number one thing. Number two is also design style of like having this kind of like containers, right? With like rounded corners and so on. And there's some sort of drop shadow here and there. Of course, this is just a design concept. It may not necessarily be easy to build or possible to build even. I think it's possible to build. But yeah, it's just a concept. But it looks very united, right? Color scheme is very, very standardized. Another one is this website that actually Chris recommended me to show everyone, like the Christopher Go. Yeah, although the text kind of go back and forth, there's a pattern to it, right? So actually it does feel united actually, even though alignment like goes left, right, but it feels united because there's a pattern to it lah. There's certain repetition to it as well. Okay. So that's for Unity. So now we're talking about Gestalt. So Gestalt is actually a bunch of rules and principles. The Gestalt principle, right, is actually or the Gestalt theory rather, is about this that the mind understands the whole greater than the parts. Okay, so I say again, Gestalt theory is all about the fact that the mind understands the whole better than the parts. Okay, so we always try to make order of chaos. You show something messy, we'll try to find the order in it. So generally there's a few rules, and then which kind of like the rules that back this theory, and then this kind of evolves into principles that can use in our UI design. And Gestalt is actually a German word. It means like shape or form, right? So actually it's about basically it's kind of describe how we perceive the world and how we deal with it. So this is actually a bit more about the psychology actually. Quite interesting. So this is about emergence. So let's talk about the first rule, emergence, right? We tend to see the simple and strong objects rather than the detailed ones, right? Like you look at this, you don't look at each individual circle, you just look at the UX, right? It's it emerges to us, right? Then after reification, I think some guys may be traumatized from, I don't know, you guys learn about type reification in 2030 or something, I don't know. But reification is that we can deduce the full object even if there are missing elements, okay? So that's the power of our mind. Then there's a multi-stability, right? Sometimes there's more than one way to look at this object. So actually there's a few ways to perceive this object. It can be a square with this as a front side, or this is the front side of the cube. So depending on which one you choose, right? After a while, our mind will always choose one to be dominant. Okay. So that's the concept of multi-stability. Okay, invariance, right? Invariance is basically about all these terms, right? Invariance about like basically the projection of an object in our mind. Right. Even if you look at this, right, they are all different rotation, size, transformation, but we can perceive them as the same object, right? Because we simplify it into a certain, like in our mind, we simply have this simplified projection. They can kind of use it to kind of see what's happening. Okay, so with these rules in mind, we can then go to the principles. Note that all these diagrams are from this website called UX Misfit. which I feel is very good. So I don't want to redesign, rebuild the whole thing. So I just use their diagrams. Okay, so first principle is principle of proximity. Is that we perceive elements that are closer to each other as more related, right? So generally those that are that are further away tend to be not in the same group. That's what I perceive. It's actually this proximity is so strong that actually even if they're not the same color or not the same shape, right, we will still group them together as one. Right. Notice that when you look at this part, we will see this as a separate group from this. So how can we use this now? UI design. We want to space things out a bit. Right. So look at this. This is once again too cramped, but having some sufficient negative space, right? White space, both vertically and horizontally. We can see that this is one group, this one group, this one group. We have our mind, when look at it instantly, we can see that this is 6 items. But look at this, it's like, wait, what's this? No, it's just a clump of elements. Okay. So I just speed through things a bit. Similarity also, right? We tend to group things that are more similar than as compared to those that are not as similar, right? So generally we look at size, shape, and color. Not as powerful as proximity, but it still works. So like for example, we look at this. Usually we kind of group these two together and they get removed, but they are very different elements, different actions. And remember, we don't want people to click things that are destructive unintentionally. So we do want to kind of differentiate things so that, like, let's say this is not similar, right? We should make them not similar. And once again, this is a secondary button, right? Because this is not ideal. Right? This is not what we want people to click. We want people to click this, right? So this is an example of similarity. Continuation is basically we tend to see things arranged in certain lines or curves, even if they're not really arranged in lines or curves. Like this can be actually 3 different strokes, right? But we see it as like one whole stroke. And same for this. All these are just shapes placed in a random shape, but then we see this kind of struct lines, right? So how can we use this is a lot of people nowadays tend to do continuation. So like this is more preferred to this, right? This kind of sliders or tabs is more common nowadays and very popular, right? Closure is also we can see things, right? We can fill in the gaps. We can fill in the gaps ourselves. So it's quite similar to the previous principle of the reification, the rule of reification, but this is more about filling the gaps ourselves. So like for example, we want the loading indicator, we don't do this. Right? There's no gap to fill in, right? But this is definitely I feel like this is the gap that we want to fill in. This is also used for like let's say progress bars, right? Progress bars, you don't want to you want to have some sort of like remaining progress. That's where it comes in. Oh my god, I need to speed up. Yeah. Then symmetry also, like I think this is we perceive things that are symmetrical as part of the same group. And so we don't want to do these things like this. We want to make sure that they're symmetrical so that look at this, this belongs together. But this will be random, right? It may not be the same group. That naturally, intuitively doesn't seem like it's the same group. What's common fate? Common fate is basically when elements tend to move in the same direction or like they go towards they're heading towards a common fate, right? Common like endpoint together, right? We will perceive them as the same group. So this one is like the same group and we perceive this as the same group. So this is relevant for like, okay, this is quite relevant for motion design. So you don't want like, let's say you have 3 cards here, you don't want one card to be going up and down, one card to be flying out like that, and so on. It's a bit weird, right? But if we have a slider like this, right, it's very, it tells us that this is all the same category, like all the same group together. Okay, figure ground is basically about like, we can separate things on different planes, right, on focus. Right, we know intuitively what is in the background, what's in the foreground. So this is definitely in the foreground, this is in the background. Right, same thing. Our mind can actually very instantly separate things, the figure and the ground. So this is where you can, instead of like doing this, right, we can basically try to capitalize on this kind of principle. So instead of like having a model that is like not very easy to perceive whether it's part of the figure or like on top or below, we can make it very obvious. And you can expect people to be very easily understand it. Right. So Material UI has this kind of things ready. I think a lot of different UI libraries have this. Common region. Okay. Quite similar to proximity, but basically things that are placed in a same region, right? If there's a specific region marked out and they're placed in it, they are perceived as the same group. So same as so this example from earlier, but now we want to have a special offer section. Right, just mark it as special offer. You just put this box around it, and wow, it looks like it's a separate thing, right? A completely different thing from below. Right, this is a non-special, then this is special. Right, it creates instantly is a impression of difference. And lastly is the periodicity. So things that occur multiple times in the same distances, similar distances, they are perceived as being related to each other. So these are like strokes, these are like lines, like blocks. Because of the way they occur, you can see that, oh, yeah, these two are like group. These two are like group. Maybe this whole thing is a group as well. Then this thing is like, this whole thing is related. So example would be, yeah, something like this. Like you may want to kind of like, how to say, you might want to split things up a bit to kind of build a rhythm for categories. So these three are the categories that they belong. These three belong to the same category because they have a certain rhythm. Then you can't disrupt the rhythm here. Then you kind of have go back to the same rhythm again. Okay. So that was about the just out, and I think this is wrong. This should be visual hierarchy. So basically, what is visual hierarchy is basically you want to make it such that when people look at your app, right, they can straight away kind of follow a certain predictable path. So generally, this is S shape or Z shape for people that read English. Because when you read English, you kind of read like start from the left and you start from you read down right, or you can go from left to right, then back to left and bottom left and so on. So you can actually reinforce these patterns. So your website is easier to view, or you can just break these patterns so that it's very, very like, wow, people say, wow, this is unexpected, or this is something unique. You can break it to kind of stand out as well. The goal is to make it such that people don't miss the information that they shouldn't be missing. So take a look at examples, right? So let's say this website, right? There's hierarchy to it. When you look at this is the flow, right? It starts from like, you naturally land this big text first, then you look down, then you'll see this. And this is what people don't want you to miss out, right? They want you to be able to see this always and feel like it because they want you to get a demo. Right? This is what they call the call to action, right? Get a demo. Another one is this block, right? There's a certain hierarchy to it, right? When you look at this image, you look at the article, then you kind of go downwards and look at the below part. There's a flow to it. And then there's also something similar to what we have learned so far is about balance. Sometimes it's not really about just having the same things on both sides of the screen. You want to create some sort of unity and fulfillment. Okay, so take a look at different types of balance. So there's a symmetrical balance, right? Such as this person's website. This person's personal website is very interesting. He's a both designer and coder. So like he has shown he's balancing this part side with both this text and these things at the background and so on. So it's very well balanced. While in this case, this website is balanced, right? But it's an asymmetrical balance. Although the things are different, you don't feel like this website is like imbalanced in any way, right? It's actually very well balanced, like even though they have different elements. So this is what I call asymmetrical balance, right? Sometimes you want to have a radial balance. It means you want to have an item like a point of focus in the middle, then everything else spreads around it. So in this case, the point of focus is that this actually you want these people to buy this recommended one. So this is very, very striking. But then it doesn't feel too overwhelmingly striking, right? It doesn't feel like, wow, how come this is so just distinct from everything else. It's because actually it's very well balanced by everything around it. It's surrounded by things that's actually countering these very striking colors. So actually it's balanced in a radial manner. And lastly, what we call is crystallographic, which is basically perhaps the hardest to build. It's basically like it's messy. It's just messy. But even in this chaos, there's some sort of order. So I think Pinterest is a very good example. Like, wow, everything's so different shapes, different sizes. It's so overwhelming. But then there's still some order to it. It doesn't feel too out of balance, right? Even though it's like very messy. Because there's still columns to this in this chaos. Okay. Then lastly, dominance, right? Sometimes you can have everything stand out. You need to have some things to fade away into the background, while some things will have to be the dominant ones. And those things are the ones that you want people to do call to action, right? That's generally the dominant element. So let's take a look at some examples. Netflix, right? I think everyone here who have taken a look at this website before. It's very clear, right? Look at this. The background is not very eye-catching. It's there, but you don't really stare at the background. But what is eye-catching is this part here. The email address, get started. Right. This is very striking because it's very different. It's very bright color as compared to the dark background. So this is also once again about the value, right? Yeah, once again come back hotspot, right? Yeah, this button is very, very eye-catching. Although you can look at other things for a while, but eventually your eyes will drift back here. You guys can try to read other stuff, but eventually your eyes will all drift back towards that hotspot. Get hotspot free. Right. So that is the power of dominance. It's dominating this whole thing. This whole page is dominated by this part. Okay. And lastly, this is not really part of the principles or elements, but I added this because some guys asked about it. So yes, nowadays we want to design for cross platforms. You like, let's say you build a web app, right? You want your app to be usable on the computer as well as on the mobile, right? So there's a few different terminologies that you hear a lot. I hope this is actually quite important. I hope you guys are listening. There's a static design. So basically your product is doesn't resize on the screen size. If you're using mobile, it looks like the desktop app, but like you can scroll horizontally and vertically. It's not ideal, right? Adaptive design. So based on the screen size, you serve a specific design. But know that the difference between this and then there's responsive design. It's a fluid design that adapts to whatever screen size. So what's the difference between these two? I mean, these two sound very, very similar, right? So adaptive design is kind of like you kind of set boundaries. So say, okay, between size X and size Y, right? We will just serve this design. And then between above size Y, we serve another design. But then this design itself is not really very it's not really responsive. It's not adapting to the screen size. It's static in itself. It's just that you're serving a different design based on the screen size. So the design is not really like changing size based on the mobile device as well, right? It's like if you use an iPad, you might get like a page that's like slightly narrower than an iPad. But if it's responsive, regardless of what iPad you use, like you always fit to the whole screen, right? So that is responsive. So naturally, people want to build adaptive and responsive, right? If mobile, you serve a different design, but you make sure that it's also responsive. If it's desktop, you serve a different design, but also make sure it's responsive. And that's the popular thing nowadays. And then generally, there are two main ideologies for web applications. There's a desktop first and a mobile first. These are different like people that believe in different ideologies. Some people do both. Some people strongly believe in one. Basically, some people believe that you should design for desktop first, then adaptive for the mobile, or you can design for mobile first and change it adaptive for desktop. Both approaches actually work, but they may result in some different may result in different designs. Yeah. Okay, I'm almost nearing to the hands-on already. Any questions so far? If not, let's quickly take a look at some designs out there on the website, and let's critique it. Let's critique some designs together with what we have learned so far. Okay, so I think of it as a bit of a hands-on activity. Okay, so feel free to just say whatever you want on the chat. Okay, after this, you take a short break, then we'll jump onto Figma. So sorry that I might overrun. Just a heads up. Oh man, okay. So take a look at the first website. Okay, so the first website is it's a conspiracy website. Okay, I'm not gonna link it because I don't want people to go to enter to like find traffic for the website. But what do you guys think about it? Let's rate it. Let's critique it based on what you have learned. Can be about anything, right? Can be about the art elements. Can be about the UI elements. Feel free to write whatever comments you have in the chat. Okay, so good point. The menu items are a bit cramped, not very spaced out. Definitely there's not empty spaces that can be used. Okay. 3 font families. Okay. So let's see. There's one here. There's one here. And it seems like this one is a different one also. Yeah, okay. So generally, I advise if you build a website, at most 2 font families, right? One for like maybe one serif and one sans serif. We can talk about this a bit more later. But actually, this is a different font also, right? Nice, Ken. Good. So that's a good point. So the company doesn't really know what to do next on the page. Okay. So yeah. So very great points. Maybe some okay. Because we have a few more other critics. I also want to move on. But maybe some of the points is that the page is not very balanced. So there's this thing on top, right? It's a bit out of place, right? I mean, everything else seems to be bounded by these these columns. But then this thing is like the middle of nowhere. Then the colors are a bit horrendous. I don't know, man. The colors are. It's not like you can't use gradient, but there's art to using gradients as well. And generally, you still want to stick to a color scheme. You have a color scheme, you stick to it, and then you can do gradients using the color scheme. But this is definitely not very clear what the color scheme is. There's like this color of like red, this orange, this blue, and this rainbow thing behind. And then there's this red brown to bluish background. Right, and then white color text. It's very messy. Okay. Sure, okay. So this is a not very good example. Okay. Let's take a look at a better example. Let's take a look at Stripe. Okay, Stripe, I think you guys may not have heard of it before, but I think some guys or not most of you guys will know of it. It's a payment kind of a company helps to facilitate payments between businesses. Yeah. So this is their landing site. It looks beautiful, right? Any comments? Let's hear some feedback. Okay, I gave my judgment already. But I think everyone can agree it looks good. But what does everyone think? Why does it look good? Good point. Wow. Okay, volume. Yes, there's definitely volume here. Yes, this is volume. Right, it does stand out. Right. Wow, that's a good point. Excellent point. Volume. Curve. Okay. I guess the device here is quite curvy. The example screen here is also a bit curvy. It's interesting that they use a bit of a mix of straight lines, right? Very, very straight lines. And some curves here. And it does there's contrast to it as well. Yeah. Okay, so I think just facilitate some of the things. So colors wise, although you also use this kind of rainbowish color, you can see they have a very this is a bit hard to achieve if you don't have a prior design experience. But there's a certain kind of a fixed range in terms of colors as well. Right, they limited to purple and maybe blue, and then a bit of a contrasting color. So this is complementary color, like purple and orange is complementary, and they kind of blend it together. Look very, very good here. Right. Then there's also in terms of balance, right? It's very well balanced. Once again, this balance, the right side here balances out the left side, and the top also balances out the bottom. So do you really think people will read this? Honestly, I didn't see this until I actually looked up and specifically look for it. I look at this and straight I look downwards already. Right. This is really just for balancing. Notice a lot of empty space here around it as well. It's also all for balancing. So it's very, very well balanced. Dominance as well. This dominates the whole page, but there's also this button here that you eventually look down towards, right? And then there's notice that this is a different type of button from this. So this is what I meant by the secondary button. There can be a different kind of design. It may not be a button like a oval shape button. It can be just like a text, but it's you can tell that it's secondary action, and this is primary action. Okay, great points by everyone. Okay, and then let's take a look at the mobile design. I don't want to just talk about web, right? So this is a mobile app, Twitch. I think some guys may be using this. And this is what you see when you try to donate subs to the streamer, right? And yeah, what are some feedback about this page? Okay, I think since I want to be a bit bored also, I guess a bit dead already. But okay, okay, call to action button, awesome. Yes, it stands out a lot, right? It's very, very dominant. And do you know why it's so dominant? It's also because the video is actually faded out. Okay, so this is an example of the what's called again? When you have the different layers, you can actually see what's in front and what's behind. This is definitely in front, right? And then this is also about dominance. You don't want them to focus on this, so you just make sure that this fades out and then everything else below here is dominating. It's a bit of interesting things that there's also use of imbalance here. You notice that this is definitely not as balanced as here. So intuitively, you can tell that it should be scrollable. This top up here, even though it doesn't tell you that it's scrollable, you look at it, you can see it's scrollable, right? Because there's an imbalance, right? This is much more spaced out than this. So you can naturally tell there's something else behind. So there's also some sort of design consideration here that's going on. And of course, the color scheme is very, very standardized. It's purplish and maybe a bit of green, right? This is the accent, right? We've discussed. The secondary color is purple. And the primary color is this kind of white, slightly light, purplish white, right? Maybe secondary color also can be say, can say it's a bit of black as well. Yeah, so this is a great color scheme. Okay, so now we'll move on to the hands-on section. So what we're doing for today is we'll be designing a UI style guide now in Figma. So I'll explain what I'm going to do, then we'll take a short break, then we'll come back and do this together. Okay, so what's the point of a style guide? Style guide is basically a shared record for your whole team. So if you are here today with your team member, but I highly doubt so, probably your team member will look at some other workshop. You can design the UI style guide together. because Figma is collaborative. You can create a Figma document and share and invite other team member. If not, you guys can just design on your own first. We will be designing a shared record that kind of documents the whole intended feel and look of the product, right? So basically, it's just to make sure that the whole thing is consistent, right, and brings cohesion. So generally, we will try to aim to design some elements together today, and then some sort of crucial UI components like typography, color, buttons, navigation menus. Maybe we have time, we will do that. And also we will document components like hover states, right? Like let's talk about the buttons. There's a different states of the button. We'll document stuff like the drop downs, animations, and so on. And this example of a UI style guide, right? Looks beautiful. You can see that this is the typeface. We will try to replicate this today. Together, right? And I'll share you guys what we'll be doing now. So basically, I'll kind of try to follow this template and do this out. But you guys don't have to follow the exact thing I'm doing. Like for example, if you want to use another font for your own design, go ahead and use another font. That's fine. If you want to use another color that I didn't choose, go ahead and use another color. It's also fine. Okay. And yeah, this is our hands-on Figma. And yeah, this is a quick problem statement. This is a website. This is a kind of web page you want to build. But we have just finished doing up a wireframe. And looking to get a high fidelity mockup. I hope you guys attended last week's workshop about what mockup and wireframes are. But basically, you want to make sure that everything's consistent. And this is what we want to build, achieve today. So after we have designed our UI style guide, we'll try to quickly use it to do a mockup, and you'll see how fast it can be. It's so fast. With a UI style guide, a mockup is so fast. Okay, Ken. So let us take a short break, and we'll come back at 11:35 maybe, and we try to we'll probably overrun. Okay, so if you guys need to head off earlier, can head off at 12 lah. If not, I hope you guys can stay together with me, and then we'll try to do this together. Yeah, let's have a short 5-minute break. I think I talked for 1.5 hours, so it's you guys may be quite shared. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat in the meantime. Okay, I hope everyone's back. Hang on. Let's turn off my music. Okay. I sent a link for the wireframe in the chat. You can download it if you want. I'm not sure if we have time to do it today. I hope we have. But yeah, let us try our best. And yeah, so today we'll be doing from something completely new. So let me just try to share my screen and see if we can. Let's try to get something done together. And I'm going to be honest, okay, I'm not as experienced with Figma as I am with Adobe XD. Okay, so at some parts I may like spend a bit of time to figure out also. But hopefully this should be okay lah. Yeah, I'm quite optimistic about it, I guess. Because like I said, it's actually quite transferable. Whatever you learn, Adobe XD should be transferable to Figma as well. Yep. Okay, give me a second. So as you guys can see, I have already created a new document. So when you go to Figma, I hope you guys have logged in already. You can create new. Don't create a FigJam. FigJam is like Miro that we used last session. It's like collaborative whiteboarding tool. What I want to do today is it's like a designer. So we just build the normal one, the non-beta one. And yeah, so you guys can all see what I see on my screen. Let me just quickly take a look at. Give me a quick second. Okay, so let's get started. So first of all, we need to create a new frame. This frame doesn't matter because we are just using it for the style guide. So we can just choose any sort of maybe let's choose a presentation style. Let's see. Let's choose a presentation style. Zoom in a bit. Oh, I can't really zoom in. Okay. Let's just choose this, and then yeah, we have this huge thing in front. So once again, click the bottom, the top right, top left, there's a frame. Yeah, then just choose one from the right side, and then it should naturally appear. So it's quite similar to Adobe XD. Right, to move on, just press the space bar and hold the space down and drag. Right, same thing as Adobe XD once again. And let's begin. Right, to scroll, you can press down the command button on the Mac. I think control button on the PC probably, and then scroll up and down to zoom in. Yep. So let us get started. Actually, let's see. So once we'll click the text tool on top, and let's quickly type down the first part. We'll have let's say we have a typeface. Okay, we don't need our style guide to be too beautiful now. We want to do it fast. Right. So let's decide on just decide on the typeface you want to use. So like I mentioned, you should try to stick to 2 typefaces at most. So maybe let's go with let's see what they have here. Do it later. Let's see what they have. Wow, they have a lot of fonts. Yeah, let's go with you guys can choose what you want. Firstly, I'm going to go with, let's see if I can find one that I like. I personally like Montserrat a lot. But I think another one that's pretty good is so I show you Montserrat here. That one is quite popular. I mean, there's a lot of quite popular ones lah. I mean, Nova is I think quite not bad. It's not bad as well. Okay, I take it back. Not this one. Okay. Some people like Nunito, but I know a friend who loves Nunito. Jeez. Okay, let's go with Open Sense first. Okay. So first one, Open Sense, right? And then you don't want to use all different weights. You want to stick to a few weights. So that's what you can do like a AA kind of thing. And make it like huge. You can make this like 48. Sure. I mean, we don't make it look too nice. Right? Let's say we want to use we only want to use regular and bold. Right. Let's make a copy of it. Show how it looks like when it's bold. And yeah, that's just easy. Right. Then we have one font down. And I think for this section, we can stick with these 2. I think we can just do one font first. Okay. Okay. So this looks pretty good already. I think we can just use this for now. I don't want to add another typeface. Yeah. And let's decide on the font sizes. So let's say we want to decide on the I mean, you can, I like copy paste stuff, but you can just text also, it's fine. We want to have a H1. H1 will be open sans bold. Okay. So let's define 5 different sizes. And let's go with maybe 36 pixels for this. Let's see if it's big enough. If it's not big enough, we'll just change it. Oh shucks, it's so big. Holy crap. Okay. I think it looks okay. Okay, and we want it to be bold, right? I mean, this is for me. You can choose what you want, as always. I'm gonna be very frank. You can do what you want for this one. That's the fun part of today's session. Is that whatever you do now, you can use it for later. Okay. Then maybe H2 will be also bold, but slightly smaller. Maybe it will be like a 28. And let's change it to 28. Okay. And do we need a H3? Let's take a look at the mock. Let me take a look at my own mockup. My own wireframe. Yeah, like why not? Right? Let's just do a H3. Okay, so let's copy paste. Okay. So like I said, I'm not very 100% familiar with. We can say actually at this point we can make it regular already. And maybe this one we have size 18 pics maybe. No, I'm coming up with these numbers based on my experience lah. You may or may not be as familiar with all this. Oh, this is a bit too small. Maybe 24 then. You may or may not be arriving at the same number as me, 20 maybe. Or the same kind of design as me. So it's fine. And last but not least, let's space out a bit. Remember, it's important with good spacing. And maybe I don't really need I just need a paragraph lah. Maybe I'll just say like, normally it's open sans regular. 16 pics. No, the 16 pics is the web default. The web default one, you guys know about the 1 REM versus 1 EM and all that. So 1 REM on the website, on the web page is 16 pixels by default. So yeah, that's okay. So I think we have this. It's pretty good. I think we only need 4. I don't think we need too many. I don't want to do too many also. And yeah. And I'm just looking at the thing I'm referencing. Let's copy this typeface thing and paste down below. And then now let's change the paragraph. Okay, you know, this is a bit too small. Let's change the setting also. This typeface, although it looks pretty sleek also when it's small, but like, I don't really want to do it too small. Okay, whatever. Paragraph. So what's the point of this paragraph thing is to define the spacing between lines and between the header of the paragraph lah. So let us just use some examples. So maybe you can use this as a header. Oh my goodness. Okay. So we do this lorem ipsum dolo. Right. And we want our paragraph text to be I'll just, okay, let me just quickly search lorem ipsum. I'll send the lorem ipsum text into the chat. You can just copy it. I mean, if you want, you can always find all the different ipsum generators, lorem ipsum generators. It's quite funny. Sometimes there's like there's a lorem bacon generator and so on. Right, so you generate basically lorem ipsum is like some placeholder text. It's like Latin and stuff. And there's a bacon version which like you can generate like it talks about pork and stuff and bacon. I mean, it's quite funny. That's all. Okay, I'm pasting the along with some text into the chat. You can just copy part of it. Don't have to use the whole thing. So this is a good way to fill up like boilerplate text if you don't really know what to write. Okay, so you can see this one is a huge. Okay, so you can see that this text currently is auto width, so you want to make it such fixed size, right? And I can drag it. Okay, so from what if let's say I say, okay, this is a bit too tight, right? The line height is a bit too narrow. I want it to be a bit more spread out, which is a 100% value constant. You can increase it here. See this paragraph spacing. So you can just do this one, or is it not this one? Oh no, may not be this one. Sorry, it's maybe this one actually. A line height, sorry. Okay, so maybe you want 28, 26, maybe 28. Yeah, maybe 28 then. Okay, I don't know. I don't know. Does it look good to everyone? Once again, you can do something very different. It's okay. I don't mind. You can build you can do what you think looks good. Yeah, I think I'll just do one sample paragraph. I won't do too many. I don't want to waste much time now. So, and then let's take a look at our color palette. Okay, so now it's a color palette. So color palette will be interesting. Okay. So what do you guys want to? Let's decide on a color palette. Let me think about this. So there's a few ways to do it. You can generate a color palette for your primary color. Then like choose a few specific secondary colors. Or you can just choose from the single color palette. Secondary colors come from your color palette, the same color palette and so on. So let's try to use like cooler maybe. Color. So with the XT, yeah. In the meantime, while loading, you can just create ellipse. So on. Right, okay, so personally I like color.adobe.xt, not .xt. But some people don't like it, so it's up to you. But let's see, I think we don't need to design anything too much to it. We just explore. And looks like today's color theme is yellow. I don't like it. Let's choose another one. Most popular, let's see. Yeah, so we can go to this kind of stuff. Color themes, most popular. Let me look at my design again, and then I decide whether I want to build it. What kind of color scheme might look good on it? No, let's go with this maybe. So personally, I'll go with this. You guys can choose something else as well. Always, right? Library. Oh my goodness. Can't just copy this. Okay, yeah. When I click it opens up. Silly me, yeah. So yeah, you can go and find whatever color palette suits your taste. And let's copy. Let's see what I can do. Okay. So let's choose a primary color of this. I kind of like this color. Do I like this color? I kind of like it. Okay, let's go with this. Okay. Then we'll use this as our complementary colors, as our like the secondary. I won't say secondary. Maybe this will be our secondary color. And this can be our accent colors. Okay. So let's just get started. So I copy this one. Let's come over to fill here. Look at this. It's just exactly the same as Adobe XD at this point, right? And voila, it looks pretty good. And you can scale it a bit. And let's write a short description below about what this color is. But before that, just write a primary. I mean, how beautiful you want to make this up to you, lah. Let's see. I'll copy that thing again. I think I'll just paste it here. Yeah, I won't make it too complicated, lah. Okay. Nice. Looks really good to me. I don't know. Then secondary color. Okay, so we leave a bit of a gap here first. We leave a gap here. Why gap? I'll tell you guys later. Let's talk about secondary color. Okay. Never mind, only perfection at this point. Like I said, I like this color. Let's go with this color. I think any color kind of works at this point. Change this to this color. And this color. Right. And then the remaining colors will be our kind of our accent. We just write accent. Once again, leave a bit of gap. And let's copy these two colors over. And voila, looks pretty good. Now you might be wondering like why are we not we got so much gap here, right? So the trick is actually you can. Oh, someone sent me something. Oh, it's Prof. Okay, on the Teams. Yeah. So actually you can kind of create your own color scheme here, right? So come back to this. Let's learn how to use this. Looks very intimidating, but it's fine. Copy this color code that you want. Come over here and then you paste it in. And you can see, let's say I want a monochromatic one. That look very good, eh? Why does it look so ugly? I don't really like these color schemes. Sure. Okay. Wow. Okay, never mind. We just try our best first. Let's just go with this first. The default one. And we can actually come with a colors. Actually, I want this to be much lighter. Okay, this is so messy. How come? What happened to this app? It used to be very easy to use. Now it's like it's a bit gone already. Whatever lah. Okay, but anyways, if you want, you can you can create a color scheme here based on this, right? And kind of like put it here as well. So let's just quickly do one. Maybe I don't think I need one for secondary. If you want, you can put one more for secondary. But yeah, wow, what happened to Adobe Color, man? They were so good. Okay. I believe is that okay, I just copy paste 5 times lah. I was thinking if there's a grid function like the Adobe XD, but not 100% sure it is. Maybe I'll just choose put 4 blocks lah. Okay. So I'll copy this color. I like this color the most actually, because it's a very light color. All right, this one's just still okay, I guess. Notice the reason why I'm not big fan of this one is because this one is a bit too vibrant as compared to all the other colors. The other colors are quite flat, but that one is a very, very vibrant color. So it may not look very good. Okay, but anyways, can bring this up because I'm not going to do a secondary one. Can bring this whole thing up. And yeah, looks pretty good for our color palette. And then they asked maybe we don't want to do too much here. There's a lot of different icons, a lot of different things you can do. I don't want to do too much. Let's just do a buttons, okay? let's just do some buttons. And maybe a nav bar. Right, because I think I'll have a nav bar as well. Okay. Fast, very good. Okay. So you notice that all these apps have this very nice feature where they kind of tell you like the spacing. So then you can just drag until you hit the right spot. And it's good. Sorry, a bit of a, yeah, okay. Awesome. So let's design some buttons. Up to you whether you want to design like roundish buttons or like very like angularish, you know, like the sharp angles and so on. For this one, I'll just go with a sharp angle one because I don't want to spend too much time on styling the buttons. But let's just design the button. Okay. So a button, right? Let's have a color with this color, right? So let's say I like this color. Okay. So this will be our button. And yeah, let's just write this as a normal. Right. And looks like this one is should be, what color should our text be? I think I'll just go with white, right? Bold maybe. And the font will be our open sans as always. Oh, sharp, it's not good idea. So once again, let's refer back to our color design. And oh, okay, maybe you go with regular 16 pixels then. Okay, so once you stick to the, I mean, I can design, I can add one more to like say like, oh, I'm okay with bold also, but I don't think there's any wrong with this. This looks it's not my kind of, not my normal kind of button that I like to design, but I think looks okay, looks great. So let's think of the dimensions as well. So you can, if you want to have granularity over the height and the width, you can put here. Let's just put this for now. Okay, awesome. Yeah. Then maybe we can have a different color when it's hovered. So we just copy paste this whole thing. And maybe I'm thinking of when you hover it, the color becomes lighter. I don't know about what you guys think. Maybe it's not a good idea. But hey, I mean, if you can not follow my design if you don't want to. Yeah. Then yeah, let's design a few more buttons. Maybe we can design some that's like can design a disabled one as well if you want. I don't know how it should look like. Let me think about it a bit. I guess it should look like a very light kind of so it may not be part of the color scheme. I think it's all right sometimes. I don't know. This one a bit too, I feel like a bit too light. This should become light. Maybe dark grayish, right? Yeah, then maybe you can do a few more variations of this if you want. Oops. Maybe instead of maybe you can have a button that's like the fill is, maybe the fill is, you can add a stroke, right? So add a stroke and then we have no fill. Right. Something like this along these lines. Then we hover it. It gets back the fill and you have what color? I mean, you can have some buttons along these lines. Right. Okay. So let's design some other items in our design that we will need. We also have text in our design. So text are basically like the roundish things that you see. Let's just go. I think we can also have a rectangle. Oops. And let's have a curved corner. Like I think for our text, we have a smaller, yeah, maybe we can actually have sorry, let me have one more type of font below here. So yeah, so it's always about iteration. You may not get the perfect thing. Text. So this is for my text, which are, if you look at design that I linked to, there's a Straits Times thing, right? That's the text that I'm looking at. Okay, so folding pics will look good. Then this will be, my text will be bold folding pics. Okay, so currently looks very ugly because, let's think about it a bit. Let's think about it a bit. The color that we want. Maybe you can use this color. Let's just use this. Okay, and this will be white. Okay, I don't want to. I think I spent a bit too much time on this already. But let's just see how it goes. And height is maybe 42. Then the thing will be 21. It's same technique as always. So note that this primary secondary thing may not be exactly the same as what I mentioned. I realized that how to say to some extent my primary will probably be white I'll be honest. My primary will be white because I think it's a bit weird to have this as like the whole background color is something. Then this will probably be like the secondary. Then this kind of like the accent, I guess. So I guess I can shift this up here. Up to you guys how you want to define the terminologies. But make sure you guys you standardize and you all understand what you guys are doing. Don't really need this anymore. Yeah. And maybe the tag then will be this color instead. Sorry. Oh, nice. Looks pretty beautiful. Okay, self praise, no praise. Normal. Okay, I think this will be okay. And then maybe finally one thing that we can have at the top, can have below to describe is the one last element we can have is the nav bar. Yeah. So it's 12 already. Those that really need to leave, you guys can go ahead and leave. Thanks for coming. Otherwise, if you can stay for a bit longer, it'd be great. Yep. So nav bar will be probably like this. White color, and then I'll have, I don't know, this is what I'm thinking of. I can some sort of drop shadow. Drop shadow, this requires some, I guess you can practice a bit, but I don't want it to be so dark. Oh, this is even darker, sorry. I want the blur to be a lot. Let me spread not so much. Maybe 20% will be okay actually. And the blur will be more. Yeah, okay, anyways, this one is a personal opinion thing. Can have a nav bar on top, then this kind of drop down. Kind of shadow if you want, but then you have the front. Yeah, you will see a thing like gone, you can just bring the front. You can put a lot of them. But this is going to be this will be the name of our app. And the color shall be our dear what primary color. Yeah, let's take a look. I think we have everything we need. Kinda. Yeah. And this is pretty impressive. Looks like something you can use for your orbital. Okay, so let's. Okay, yeah, no question on chat. For more, I didn't look at it for a while. So let's take a look at the design that you want to build. And you will realize how easy it is to build it. It's literally in a matter of like potentially minutes. Okay. I see if I can drag the image in. Okay, I drag the image into here. You can you guys can try to do the same. I know it's a PDF, but I think you can still drag it in somehow. Okay, so let's add a new frame. This time it will be a desktop page. Okay, because we're building a desktop app here. Then let's get started on this. So let's just go from top to bottom. So let's get our nav bar first and paste that in. So drag this thing to cover the whole thing. Yep, looks pretty good. Actually, this looks like the material UI thing, right? If you don't disable the shadows. Okay, then we kind of need like a today's recommendation. So that looks like a H1 open sans bold to me. And the font color, maybe I want to choose this one. I mean, it may not look very nice, but I think it's all right for now. Oh, it's so dark. I mean, so like faded, but it's fine. Okay. And what's content that we had? Today's recommendation, right? Today's recommendation. Okay. Maybe one more component we want to do is cards, but I just whip something up. Card. I'll just copy paste these, drag it over, and then I'm done. Kinda. Yeah. So this will be how our cards look like. Actually, yeah. I'm not gonna put too much effort here. If I can frame more details about what should be at what position and so on. So let's grab our card here. I'm not sure about the drop down thing. I'm not very sure about the shadow thing already. Drop shadow already. That may not look very nice, but okay, I'll just stick with it for now, just for the sake of the demonstration. In the real design, I don't think this looks very great. But it's all right. So we need some sort of so we'll be looking at this design. We have some sort of image here that I'm just going to go and Google and get like a random image. Nice image. Just download. Again, it's huge, it's fine. Scale down a bit. Oh wow, Figma does not distort the photo. Not bad, interesting. So we just roughly. Of course, I mean this you guys can define then what's the, if you have a real card, you can define what is the amount of padding to put in your card and so on. But because I'm here, I'm just trying to do this fast. So I'm not gonna put in too much effort here. Loan is some dollar, blah, blah. That looks like a H2 to me. And then the tag, and then the text below, and then read now. So this will be the hello world. Right, let's just call this the name of this. Oh, I forgot to tell you what this mockup is for. I can't believe I forgot this. This mockup is actually like a news aggregator website. Basically, this site aggregates news from a lot of different sources and then displays it, and then potentially have some AI and stuff to like. It's basically Netflix for news. That's the intention. I think some of you guys may figure that out already. That's what we're trying to do here. It's a Netflix on news. So copy the tag here. So here we have a tag. Copy over. All right. Straits Times. You notice? Oh no, there's an issue with the padding now, right? Yeah. I mean, if you do it more formally, this will have again, more for me to find like how much padding is sufficient. I'm just gonna roughly, yes, looks good. And then, yeah, I guess if you do a proper design, you can also specify what's the distance between everything. But I'm not going to do that right now. Okay, then I copy my long distance over. This text will be the primary color, I guess. Honestly, it doesn't look very good, but can always be beautified later, I guess. Okay. So first time using, no, not first time, sorry. Very rarely use Figma, so I'm so getting used to this. Okay, then read now button. Let's go to this button. Shucks, whatever, 6 times. And yeah, that's our button here. Okay, sure, the color is a bit of a mess by now, I think. I feel like color is a bit of a mess. Can redesign this later. Well, yeah, I mean, this is a top part already. It's really quite fast. Then the bottom part. It's because you've read something. The DUIs, blah, blah, blah. What's the DUIs or below. Okay, then we're going to do a few cuts here. I think Figma can extend it. Okay. Effectively, I'm just going to copy everything I've done here. Make copy. Right. And let's transform it. I don't need so much. I'll cut off oh shit. Maybe I'll say at this point I'll do a dot. Okay. Could be now. Yep, something similar. Looks about right. And that's very fast. Right, that was like maybe a few minutes. I think can do it. Oh, do they have a good thing? Group them. Okay, is there a grid function for? I don't know, man. I don't really know Figma as well as I know Adobe XD. Is that like a gridding function? Never mind. Okay, just anyways, you can do a few more. Okay. Yep, and we are done actually. And it looks a bit terrible. Actually, I think what is terrible is the drop shadow actually. I think I'd rather do a stroke. I think even a stroke looks better than this. 2H. Okay, so this definitely looks a bit terrible. What else looks terrible is the color. Oh, okay. I think it's hard to fix right now. But I mean, you guys can try to fix this. So on. Yep, and yeah, hopefully everyone here enjoyed what's happening. Okay, yeah, never mind. Okay. And yeah, actually this is what you, oh my God, I'm on the wrong tool, I think. Yeah, anyways, I think that the final result aside, right, I don't think it looks that great. I don't know what you guys think. I personally feel like it looks quite terrible. But this is a rough intro lah of how you can do a UI style guide to kind of guide your design decisions lah. And this is not just about like when you're doing design, when you're actually coding, right? Let's say, oh, what's what like ideally is that you have configured you've used stuff like SES, right? SCSS for styling. You can configure your SES variables correctly, then it's fine. But if let's say you are not configured correctly, you forgot what the color code is, you can always come back to here, take a look at what the color code, what the font size, what's the font family, and so on. And this should make it easier for you to develop and iterate. So you don't have to keep like coming up with something in that like, oh, I put this for now, then I'll come back and design later. That's not going to work very well. Generally, you should design first, then you build, and it's very, very fast. Okay, any questions so far? Honestly, okay, if you weren't able to follow very well for the hands-on section, no worries. I think it's quite fast-paced, but I think mostly I'm just trying to introduce you guys to the tools that people commonly use nowadays. Not just only for UI UX lah. Like, yeah, I think in software projects also people tend to use Figma, right? Adobe XD and so on. So I'm just trying to get everyone familiarized with the different tools and so on. And hopefully when you do need it, right, you can then say, hey, you can tell a team, let's say you do a 2103, you need to design the UI also, right? The 2103T. Then let's say your team needs to design something, then you say, hey, why don't you use Figma? Right? I can tell you guys how to use it. And then wow, like it's super easy, right? And definitely if it definitely is you feel more motivated building something that looks good, right? Than building something that you feel like you don't look like how it looks like. Right. Generally that makes you a lot less motivated for I don't know, all the projects are right. It doesn't matter what project you're working on. You naturally want your thing to look good. So that's why you should try best to do these UI designs if possible. And yeah, I hope today's session kind of introduced you guys to the different UI elements and so on. So to have a quick summary, I think there's one feedback as well that someone gave me that there was no conclusion of sorts. Okay. To have a quick summary, I'll just quickly share my screen. Scan. Today we have covered a few of these principles. Oh shucks. I'll cover a few of these art elements, UI elements, and principles, right? And hopefully you guys can apply this for your different projects. And sorry, just jump to the end again. And once again, right, this is the same conclusion slide as last week. But yeah, once again, you can take a look at these different websites like Laws of UX. You can take a look at Dribble. I personally really like Dribble, but there's another one called Behance, I think. You can look at Behance, you can look at Morbin. Right, they have a lot of, you can see what people are doing out there in the industry to get inspiration. Like I said, it's very hard to come up with something on your own unless you have experience already, or you are born with some sort of innate talent for design. Some people are like that. Okay, I know that some people who they never do design before, but when they do design, it looks beautiful. That's great. You're one of those types. Awesome. Right, your life is for design set. You can easily when you build, you also can have an eye for design. That's great. Right, you can decide whether something is good or not. So yeah, so things like Behance, Morbin, Dribble, right? All these are great avenues to get inspiration. Pinterest is also not bad, but Pinterest will be a ragtag, right? Sometimes you may not get good stuff. But Dribble, I think there's a certain criteria, and people on there are quite serious designers. So generally, the quality of stuff you find there are quite good. Yeah, then these are the things that this was also in last week's slides. When I sent it over to uploaded to MS Teams, but I'll just include it here again. This is what Chris recommended, right? During last week's session. Yes, to Xiaoying's question, yes, I'll be sending a slides, don't worry. Yeah, you can check out these documents as well. These are more articles and stuff. And if you're interested, I think I'm going to sell up 3216 a bit here. But yes, 3216 applications are open. This closing by 12 June or 11 June, I think. do sign up for it if you are interested in whatever we have just covered today and last week also. Because 316 is really about building a product that people actually use, right? That's the evaluation criteria. If your product is the product doesn't solve any problem and no one uses it, then you won't score well. So the 316 is going to be challenging if you want to try. But year 2s can take it, year 3s can take it, and year 4s can take it. You just come and take it. And people from different faculties will be there. It's a cross-faculty module. So you work with people from like architecture, business, food science, law. People from all sorts of faculties come together to work on something very brilliant. So if you're interested in such a thing, that sounds like your cup of tea. And you're ready for like the workload because it's not going to be light also. Can try to apply and take and see how. It's separate from Movex, so you need to apply now before Movex starts. And yeah, if not, that's all for this 2-part workshop. I hope I think some guys came for both. Some guys may only have attended the 2 days and not last week's. But regardless, thank you so much for being such a great audience, such kind audiences. And yeah, I hope to see you guys around. And once again, feel free to ping me on message me on MS Teams or email me if you have any doubts about UI UX. Don't have to go through the consultation. I know there's project consultation, and those are more official. But feel free to reach out to me if you have any doubts. Okay, I'm always willing to answer queries. If you feel like you're not sure your website's user experience makes sense, let me know. We run through together. You're not sure if your UI can be improved, let me know. We can improve it together. Okay. And yeah, if not, that's all for today. And that's all for that's all for the UI UX segment. Thank you guys so much for attending, and hope to see you guys. Yep, have a great lunch, everyone.